2007, 2008. Right now, we're sailing to Hawaii.
The young people, they are supercharged to be there. They want to be there. They're interested in everything. You know, anything that comes up, they'll take it, run with it. So, you know, that's the sort of life you're entering in for the next year.
Oh, they're going.
So it's very exciting for everybody, even for the guy that's only going to be on the boat for 30 days to Hawaii. You know, for most of them, it was the first time they've ever done anything like that, and it was the biggest adventure of their life.
There's this newness on board, and everybody's trying to figure everything out. Having to sail the boat as a team, having to raise sails, lower sails, steer the boat, that definitely brought unity.
You're right away from day one, you're right in there, and it was really neat. It was fun to be part of a watch.
Getting people trained to do things on the boat and teaching people where to go and getting people settled.
I mean, what's one of the most memorable experiences so far?
Trying to forget about being sick.
I remember the first few days were really rough. We had some people who were really sick.
And all of a sudden I'm just rushed to this one side of the boat, and next thing I know everybody is hanging over the boat and just lying in bed. People didn't think I was going to get up for the whole trip. You know, I thought to myself, I'm never going to do this again. You know, why would I lie in bed for an entire trip across the Pacific Ocean?
I haven't got seasick, but pretty much everyone else has. That sucks.
Once it started getting a little bit calmer and I got over the seasickness, it was just excitement at finally being out.
One thing I really enjoyed was the sailing. We set sail like right away and just had something like 19 days, just beautiful days of sailing all the way across. I was like, wow, like we just sailed right across. We seemed to miss almost every storm on the way. They were either passing in front of us or behind us.
This is what we're eating for lunch today.
What is it, Kaisa?
It's a ripe orange. So I'm just gonna cut it up, maybe fry it. I think I'm gonna make an orange souffle for dinner. Maybe I might make a dessert. We can all share it, each have a lick, and it's gonna be good. I have a couple in here, you know.
My favorite food is probably the fresh fish that we caught. It's very tasty.
You can take absolutely anyone from any background, and we're all stuck on this tiny little, we have like 100 feet of living space. Can't go anywhere. No one can shower. No one can, you know, keep up their appearance or what they want people to see them as. But it works. Like, no matter who you take and no matter what kind of group you have, everyone just settles.
I gotta hit it!
Everyone just settles into this routine and just kind of meshes as a group.
If you do that again, Kaisa. Yeah.
So yeah, I became home about probably a week and a half in.
After a few days of seeing only the ocean, it was kind of a very isolating feeling, and I think it's going to be pretty cool to be able to see land again, to know that the outside world exists.
It does exist.
It does exist, exactly.
When did we spot land today?
About 10 minutes ago.
There it is.
I was down below, I heard the term land ho, came dashing up here, and sure enough I spotted land ho as well.
The sight of just seeing land was pretty exhilarating.
Let's bring you to
Hawaii.
Well, what do you guys think of Hawaii?
Pretty concrete. Beautiful. Got pretty big tires.
Mauna Kea was amazing.
What's it like to see inside a telescope?
Going up to the top of this mountain and watching the sunset from something like 14,000 feet, and the clouds there and all these huge otherworldly looking telescopes.
It was just quiet and everyone was just sitting there watching it, and it was so beautiful. Like I've never seen anything like that, any sunset like that.
Each and every leg is different, but leg 2 was a really special leg. There was this real neat kind of unity that was on board the boat.
Meeting everyone, we were all so nervous, I think, but you know, it's immediately everyone was, there's just so much excitement on the vessel that you just started talking to people immediately, and you know, everyone was there for the same reason.
You don't break the ice with everybody all at once because it's really not possible. You break the ice and open up your life and your history and where you've come from, and you meet another person who made you the same. They open up their past, and here are two people that are now on this boat, and you've come from two different stories.
The world doesn't exist beyond the grace. You know, there's nothing else. I remember that on leg 2, out of the 17 days we were at sea, I think we had 14 days where we didn't even have another ship on radar. There was nothing else out there. You know, the entire world at that point was the grace.
I guess everybody felt like they kind of belonged in a way. It was almost like a deep sigh of being able to relax.
We are forced to live out here together. We cannot get away. We were at sea together for what, 16 days? We can't even go for a walk on the beach. Well, there's value in that.
You're away from your family, you're away from your school, you're away from your job.
You don't like yourself. You don't have anything to distract yourself, so you kind of have to sit down and examine yourself a bit and where you're going and what you're doing.
We crossed the equator for the first time. I think it was around midnight, actually. Everybody yelled hurrah, and then the next morning King Neptune came and visited us.
You're being blindfolded because you're not allowed to see the southern hemisphere until you've been initiated.
We had somewhat of a ceremony because everyone who crosses the equator by boat has to be initiated.
Okay, now, you are about to be part of an old salty ritual. At the equator, who wants to remain as a green hand? Say now. Wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer.
There's a lot of, you know, lore and a lot of, you know, rich stories wrapped around this crossing the equator.
King Neptune and his queen and motley retinue hold court at the equator.
Simon described King Neptune as ruggedly handsome.
Just doused them all with this fire hose. It was hysterical. We'd been at sea for so long. It was nice to have this. Kind of shook things up again.
I am King Neptune.
Everyone got called up one by one. We all had our armpits molasses.
Some people had their heads shaven.
It was another experience that connected all of us. It's sailback sailors together.
When you get to the Marquesas, once again, like your mouth just like drops. It's rugged, it's beautiful, it's raw.
That entire night was amazing. You could tell by all the work that they'd gone to that night was going to be special for them too. You know, that they cared a lot about who was coming and what connection they were hoping to get out of it.
And these guys were dressed to the nines in their traditional costume.
They're all like, they're so passionate about it and they're all so into it that it just makes it's so intense, and it's really cool. And it was incredible. Like, none of us had ever seen anything like that before, and it was just just their excitement and hospitality, just to have this urge to want to share that part of their culture with us.
You know, it's something that you can't duplicate outside of that setting.
And then afterwards, then we danced together.
Had I had a choice, would I have danced? I'm not so sure, but I think it was a good thing that I was forced.
And I think, you know, song and music is a big part of a people and a culture, and sharing it is quite magical.
We brought all our instruments, and after they danced for us again, we hustled in this hall. They had this huge spread for us again.
For them, it was, I think, more unexpected that we would participate in the level that we did.
But at the end of it, we became a part of their celebration.
It was such an affirmation for us to realize that these guys they got as much out of the visit as we did. They're having closer interactions with some of these out-of-the-way places and communities than they've had with their own families at home. They're more deeply cared for by some of these people that they just met that have nothing than the people at home that they've just left.
There seems to be this really neat blend of Polynesian and French culture that come together.
The Grace turned into this jungle gym. I think the kids really helped break the ice. Kids are amazing that way. You know, that's great when you can go to a place and it's not just all about yourselves, but you're actually getting to know the place that you're in and getting to know what their culture is like and their community is like.
I want to see what God's about here. So we pile up to this church. It's this tiny church. And then to sit down in the pews and then to try and sing along with these hymns and just kind of go for it. And it was the most beautiful hymns and the beautiful singing I think I've ever heard.
God is everywhere. You can sail for days and days and days and days and days, and He's still there. And that's a pretty powerful thing to know when you go to some of the more desolate places in this world, like the middle of the Pacific. He's still there, just as strong.
On our way to Rarotonga is where we encountered not a storm. We encountered a bit of weather. Sea started to pick up, and they got to, I guess, around 30 plus feet.
The waves just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
There's quite a bit of motion. Boat started rocking and rolling. I guess your anxiety comes from looking at Skipper's face as he deals with the responsibility of a building sea and just the lives of 30, 40 people on board the boat.
It opens your eyes to the respect that, you know, you should have for the ocean.
Palmerston was a really neat experience. Small community that just welcomed us all in wholeheartedly and embraced us as a part of their community. Just spent the 3 or 4 days just playing with our kids, volleyball games, just sitting and talking with them. And they were just unbelievable in their hospitality, just sharing of everything that they had with us.
When you go there, any visitor is treated like a king there because they're so out in the boonies and hardly anybody goes there.
And our minds are saying, this is too much for you to give. But they kept giving, and they kept giving more.
And then they tried to teach us to dance. That was the next funny part. They tried very hard. Some of us could, some of us couldn't, like me.
And we had, I think, dance practice 3 times a day. I loved it. I love to dance, and I loved to learn dances outside my own culture. So much fun to be able to just kind of get up there and do it. I think all the girls loved it, even the ones that were in the back saying that, I can't dance, yada, yada, yada. It was a way of learning about the places together as a group. Now, apparently in South Pacific dancing, for the men, the knees are essential. They must shake, they must vibrate, they must bang together at a very rapid rate. And this, of course, is how you can, judge a man's masculinity, apparently. So it was quite a hoot to see the guys just kind of go for it and do something that they totally wouldn't have thought is, what it means to be a man. They were very intentional, not just including us, but making sure we knew their dance, making sure we knew who they were, saying, don't forget us. We are the people from Palmerston.
It's like pouring rain and it's pitch dark out and there's just like lightning crackling all over the place.
There was nervousness. Once again, like you saw a skipper, you kind of saw him a little bit worried, and he started disconnecting all the electronics, the radio systems, in case we did get hit, we're not going to fry all our communication equipment. Eventually it was right on top of us.
It was just like, bam!
Lightning would go and thunder right away.
It was crazy. Bam! Like everything was bright like it is now, and then gone, and it was dark. The thunderstorm was amazing.
Ambrim was probably one of my favorite stops of the whole trip. It was so remote, so different than anything I'd experienced before. Everything about it was really different, and it seemed to be shrouded in some kind of like mystery that, it was taboo was what it was called.
It's been pretty segregated just based on rumors of witchcraft and black magic and stuff like that, so they have a lot of problems getting doctors and teachers from the outside to come in. Only recently they've started allowing foreigners to actually watch it. It's just the early beginnings of tourism.
We were really excited to go see it, and once you started watching it, you kind of realized that it wasn't really meant for you to be watching. Women weren't even supposed to see it, but because it was being done for foreigners, the village women were allowed to be there as well.
Of that whole experience, the part I enjoyed most was after the dance, just being able to talk to the people and let them realize that we weren't just some tourists who were paying to come see them. We really wanted to engage with them.
coming up to the volcano in the boat and just going, oh my goodness, it's smoking.
It looks like something out of Lord of the Rings, like Mordor.
It had erupted and kind of covered everywhere in ash.
Like the coconuts were at hip level and not way up in the air.
Live volcano, right there. Take that. Take that.
We actually walked up this volcano, hiked up to the top.
And you'd walk and your feet would just kind of like right into it.
These vents are steaming all over the place.
The sound of it just got louder and louder and louder.
It feels like you're standing behind a jet plane. It's very overwhelming to think that you're standing on the lip of something so powerful.
There's no joking around about this one. Like, this is pretty wild.
And you stand there and you turn around and you look back towards the town of Rabaul and you see that this whole town laid out in front of you, and you can see the path where the volcano exploded and all the ash and pumice all drove down this hillside and totally obliterated the forest.
Give everybody a high five and then get out of there.
We're good.
We were watching these whales from beside us, and somebody asked the skipper, "Can we jump in?"
Next thing I know, Sean had jumped into the water, and he just kind of went over the side, and so he jumps in, and everybody stops. It's like, what the heck just happened? He's going in, I'm going in too.
So 3/4 of the boat jumped over the side.
And it was kind of one of the neat instances where we just decided, okay, let's drop things. Everyone grabbed their mask and snorkel and their fins and just hopped over the side.
And for an hour, we swam with, at one point, up to 25 of these whales. And they were so interested in us. They would come right up to trainees and just stay out of reach.
It was this unreal, real experience. You could hear them talking back and forth to each other. So it was a fantastic experience that ended rather abruptly.
There was Sam and I, and we were off just drifting, and these whales would come up near us, and everybody was scrambling back to the boat. And we kind of poke our heads up, we're like, why are they back there? And they're like, shark, shark!
We all booked it back to the ship, and I think everybody's character came out at that point.
I was just like, I am not going to be the last one. I'm not going to be that shark's dinner. I was so scared.
I remember like swimming as fast as I could, and I was getting tired, and I got to the point where I was like, I just don't care anymore. The shark can eat me. I don't care.
Everybody fought for the ladder. You know, it's not women and children first. I was
And I finally got back and got on board, and it was fine.
We're gonna build a canoe. The best canoes we've seen throughout the whole Pacific are here in the Soy Islands.
Everybody in the Western Pacific is still driving around in a dugout canoe, an outrigger canoe. Even the little kids have their own personal little canoe. It'd be really fun if we could build one of these things. So it was actually Jose who found a builder for us, and we got in touch with him. He put us in touch with a guy who had a log. We went out to find the guy.
When we started the whole project, we're like, yeah, we want to build a canoe, and they're just like, really, you want to build a canoe?
Going into the bush, trekking through mud and mangroves, and we got to the canoe, we hollowed it out and worked for probably like 3 hours a day just hollowing it out.
We initially rough shaped this log in the woods.
They can't really speak English, and we can't speak their language well. So you're trying to communicate how you're going to get this log out.
Hey, 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 hey!
Towed it out with about 15 guys.
Okay, let's go!
And the only way we could get it going was everybody start running. And we were just running and running, and you'd be up and over logs, and then your knee would go deep in mud, and your shoe would fall off, and then people would fall over. They all called us crazy for doing it this way, but... And then once we got it out, we towed it back to the other island.
Hey, what's with your rudder?
David had never built a canoe with anybody before, and he told me straight to my face, I'd never built a canoe with a white man before. He offered his services, and he, for the next 2 days, painstakingly took time with all our trainees, whoever was interested in building, that was pretty well everybody. And I lived in a thatch shack, no electricity, no nothing. Lived on coconut and fish, basically. And he's about a third or fourth generation builder, this guy.
Some of the girls from our boat, I think, were the first girls ever to kind of start hauling out a canoe.
In their culture, women aren't allowed to take part in creating a canoe. That's just not part of their culture.
Sorry.
They were so excited to share this part of their culture with us, and we're just so excited that someone was actually taking an interest in it. It was amazing though to watch them work, just to see like the simple tools they had, but yet how quickly and kind of nimbly they produced.
They did bow scrolls, and I don't know if you call it bow scroll, but some design on the bow actually. And they would very kind of roughly mark it out with their hands and kind of see where they wanted to, and then they'd chip away at this axe. And they would do it with such fine precision, just the way they held the axe and the way they pushed the way they knew how it was going to kind of carve out.
I think the coolest part about that day was just working together with these villagers of Soy, and them sharing their culture with us, and us sharing our culture with them.
The Spirit of God is with us.
Hallelujah. I thank you for David and for all he's shared with us here, both his skills and his heart and his mind, Father. More than the canoe, Father, we thank you for the interaction with the people that we've had. We'll remember them, and we'll bring the memories back to Canada with us, with the canoe.
Okay, we're gonna try it out.
We all drew names of who we were going to get for Christmas.
Secret Santa gift?
And so everyone had one person on the boat that they had to make a gift for. And you had to be really creative because you're on a boat, on the ocean. You don't have that much stuff.
Like 2 a day. I know, I did so many today. I did like 8 or 9 today.
So I remember Christmas morning and our little betel nut tree that was kind of crooked. And all these gifts that were wrapped with newspaper, random bits here and there, boxes, mismatch. Being able to give a gift that you've made from scratch was really special, because I think Christmas a lot of the time in our culture is very give, buy. I think that Christmas, I look back, it was real grounding for me. on just taking time to just celebrate people important in your life. You know, it's not about the gifts so much.
Andrew, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Leg 4 was a cool leg. It was not a leg of voyaging or sailing, but it was a leg of experience, a huge amount of cultural interaction experience.
When you wake up in the morning until when you go to bed at night, you're with people and you're in a community that you eat, sleep, and breathe together. So it's a community that you learn to trust, you learn to grow into, you learn to put energy into that community, and that community gives you energy back.
I knew I grew as a person. I don't know if I could put my thumb on exactly what, but I knew, like, just living in such a small community and just being out of your comfort zone.
There's got to be some thoughts, like first time you're steering and you're actually in control of this 140-foot tall ship sailing to Guam.
I think it's probably better just not to think about it.
I was more excited about the trainees than about the places we got to go to. More excited about just doing a job well done and getting them to these places.
You learn along the way, but you know, there's definitely some element there of danger.
You ever think you'd be doing something like this?
No, definitely not, but I'm very happy that I am.
You don't realize how you're growing, you know, how these challenges are actually changing you.
Together, 2, 6, ease. 2, 6, 2, 6, 2, 6.
We were aware that we followed the war in the Pacific all the way across from Hawaii, from Pearl Harbor into Hawaii. Shoot, there was something like 98 vessels that had been sunk in a day. So it was just littered with wrecks.
Just the size of the wrecks was unbelievable.
Huge 300-foot cargo carriers that had Japanese Zeros in their holds. They were being brought down for the war.
And then you look on the outside of the hull and it's just this unbelievable life all over the outside. So these soft corals and these just amazing fish life, and just really, really neat to swim, to see the two kind of opposing. And then we got into the Yangtze, these huge boats passing within 100, 200 feet of you. Just these massive freighters. It was unlike anything I've seen.
How you doing there, guys?
Going ashore as a group and going off to explore. It was quite interesting.
Shanghai in a few words, what do you think?
Big. Everything's made of glass. Thumbs up. It's pretty sweet. Awesome.
It was cold.
Lots of traffic. I mean, big culture shock. It's like a never-ending city there. Also, you know, being able to overcome as an obstacle the language barrier. That was one of the toughest things, was trying to communicate with others.
Hey, we're going fishing, baby!
China was a lot rougher feeling, more raw somehow.
Psychos or drunkards without guardians are prohibited to take taxis.
Here we are at the guardhouse, the Great Wall.
I think the Great Wall was probably my favorite landmark to visit.
I got dropped off and got to hike for 10 kilometers along the top of the wall.
And it was kind of tough because, you know, your muscles atrophy when you're out at sea sometimes, and just the lifestyle makes you somewhat lethargic in ways. So, I mean, working those legs is pretty sore, and as well as some of the others with me.
You could feel the history in the Great Wall, and especially the section we went to was a not so touristy part, so a lot of it had been left unrestored.
Going to the War Memorial in Hiroshima was it's a very subdued experience.
The museum especially, you went through the first section and you had a lot of facts about nuclear weapons and what the state of things are now and what it was like.
We were all walking around just kind of struck dumb by the utter loss of human life that had occurred there and the tragedy of that bombing.
They don't want to blame anyone because they know that if they do, it will just come back. Like, hatred can only lead to more hatred.
Being able to go with the whole boat was pretty unique because we were able to walk around together and experience it together, and then also be able to go back and talk about it as a group and share our impressions.
And a little bit nervous about the big Pacific crossing, because we're crossing almost 4,700 miles, which we knew was going to be the longest crossing. And it wasn't a trade wind crossing, so we knew it was going to be a hard crossing.
There's a lot of different weather. There was good, there was bad, and there was so bad you wanted to just stay in your bunk all day.
I took it pretty seriously that we were out there and our fuel was sort of starting to get lower and lower, and we weren't making the progress that we had intended to.
We actually went backwards that day about 12 miles, which was kind of disappointing.
Kind of low time in the group mentality.
We were, what you would say, I guess, helpless in the middle of the ocean. One sail up, blowing like 50 knots. It was crazy. We had a sit down with the whole crew. All the trainees got together and we did a little exercise. And it was just to get some feelings and emotions and thoughts about what was happening out in the open. And some people were at their breaking point for sure, and being able to help them and assist them and help them overcome their difficulties at that time.
Started making way again, and all of a sudden you just see everyone's spirits start rising up, and you realize that you're headed in the direction that you want, despite how low on fuel you might happen to be at that time.
If I could go back to one place in the world I've been, it would definitely be Midway.
When we made the decision to roll into Midway, that was pretty sweet.
This very much turned the mood right back around again.
Not a scheduled stop at all. Midway was an emergency stop.
We are running out of fuel, so
but they didn't have any of the normal fuel, so they were in the war, so they had to fill us up with jet fuel.
Every decision on the island was made around these albatross.
They're so passionate about the birds, and it's all about the birds, and don't run over the birds. If they're on the road, move them.
So I think it's important that there are these areas where natural animals are safe and can have a place to call home, especially with all the pollution and poaching and whatnot that is in the world today.
How's it feel to be eating fresh fruit again, Gabe?
Amazing.
Oddly, we're on the starboard side of the channel.
Better than anything.
Thank you, Lord, for giving us food. It's delicious and nutritious. Thank you, Lord, for giving us food.
God is good. I mean, He took care of us and provided for us.
What's for dinner? Curry chicken!
A lot of the nature around me was constantly bringing to mind how strong God is and how weak I am and how much I have to rely totally on Him.
Because there were so many variables that I had no control over, and so many times that you're almost at the end of your rope and you just need to hang on to something, and God is that something.
On offshore, I learned that God is good.
Coming home, it's almost cliche to say that it was bittersweet, but it definitely was.
More bitter than sweet.
Once we enter the strait, the motion stops. You know, this motion that you'd been used to for about a year, it stops. And there's this realization that you've done it.
It was really heart-wrenching in a lot of ways. You know, you start to realize how much you really cared about the people that you were with and how much you cared about the boat.
And you just want to hang on to that as much as you can. You don't want it to be over. You want to keep going. There's more places to see. There's more people to be with. But at the same time, people are really looking forward to seeing their families or seeing just loved ones at home.
We came back and we kind of turned the corner in the harbor and you see this dock full of people. I don't know how many people were there, maybe 1,000. And they're all waving and cheering and smiling. And they are so happy to see you. And I really wanted to just go hide in my bunk.
It's been an amazing trip and life-changing experience. Happy to be home.
It has to end, you know, it has to change you and you have to come back to this part of life and carry on and take what you've learned from it. And that's something that, in retrospect, I'm immensely thankful for.
But you're not really, I don't think, ever really to let go of the life and the adventure that people have experienced out there.